This is the Horsepower Hour.
Yes, hello once again to the Horsepower Hour, the only podcast with a salvage title. Joining me as always is the venerable Coy Forticus, aka Buffalo Coy. Sin Masterson, how you doing, buddy?
Hell yeah, bro. I'm doing great. How about
Son,
yourself?
it's been an eye-opening week. Eye-opening week being in the South, I'm telling you that. Did we talk last week about how I'm on the asshole spectrum now?
Yeah. You were on the opposite side here where you were the guy kind of stopping people in the store to talk for 30 seconds, and then you think you're going to do that where you're at, but then they stop you for 8 minutes, and then you got to be the asshole that says, I got to go. Unlike here where you're the asshole that we're telling them to, stay here and talk to me for 86
Well, I feel
seconds.
like So I might have found a way around that. And by the way, Darwin Bonk is in the comments. Thanks so much for joining us. If you guys want to come and check out the live podcast, we are trying to make it happen every Thursday around that 6:30, 8:30 Pacific or Central Standard Time. Now that I'm in Central, by the way, and that's another weird thing. I won't really get into it, but like Florida is one of the few states where it has both Central and Eastern time zones. I thought we'd be living in the Eastern time zone, but we're right on the cusp. So it's a very strange, it's a bizarre place to be, and I haven't really gotten used to it yet. But anyways, here's the point. I found a new thing that I'm doing with people. So if I'm saying hi to someone and it's clear, like, oh, we're doing the Southern thing where they think we're going to stop and talk, instead of that, I'll just cruise right past and I'll be like, hey, man, good to see you. I'm going to talk to you tomorrow, or I'll talk to you next week, or hey, we'll catch up the next time I see you. And then they have no choice but to go, oh, okay. Hey, it was good to see you, man. And I'm like, good to see you too, brother. You take it easy. And then I just roll on past, like just cruise on by. I'm happy. They're happy. It seems like it's the perfect solution. And I'm honestly kind of proud of myself for figuring that out.
That's good. That's real good.
Because
I like
it's a set, you know what they say about, if you know that there's a set amount of time, you can do almost anything. So like if you're treading water for 3 hours, you're not going to be able to do it. And at a certain point, you're just going to think to yourself, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to choke on some seawater and die now. But if someone tells you at the 3 hour mark, and here's a stopwatch, by the way, we are going to rescue you, you'll stay there and you'll swim for fucking 12 hours because you think someone's going to come and get you, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of that opposite thought pattern, Coy, where I'm saying hello to someone and they're thinking, fuck, now we got to have this whole conversation. But then I give them the out and I go, hey, man, it's great to see you. I do want to talk to you. We're going to catch up in the next couple of days. And then that completely takes me off the hook.
I like what you got going there. My question though is, how does this work when it's the person you don't even know? You know what I mean? So they're like, you're kind of going by and they see you got the last thing of ribs at the grocery store. And they're like, hey bro, good looking ribs there. I was gonna get some of those. Nice. And you can tell they wanna exchange some words. You're just like, yeah, talk to you next week, bro. And they're like, what? I don't even know this guy. You're like, yeah, good seeing you. I'll catch up with you a couple days though. And they're just wildly confused. Is that what you're doing, or you have a different method for the unacquainted people?
I could see how that would be a problem. If I were in that situation in the store, I think what I would do is I would just go, yeah, I'm so fortunate to have found these because I got to get them on the grill right now. Like my wife told me these need to be done in 2 hours. So like I am booking it. Thanks so much. Next time I see you, like we'll do the whole thing and then I'll just roll out. And what you're doing is you're walking away and you're being friendly, but you're walking away as you're saying it and you're letting them know, like, I appreciate you. I love everything about what you're doing. But I am walking away. Best of luck to you. I'm being polite. I'm being courteous because there's a difference between, they're trying to talk to you and you're just like, fuck you, dickhead, and walking away. That's very different, right?
It is, but I would say try it on those people just in case, like, because it'll be funny. I'd just be like, yeah, catch up with you next time, bro. Yeah, next week. I'll be same
Yeah.
spot, same time, same place next week. And they'll be like, well, and then see if they're in the meat aisle at the same time next week,
Yeah.
it'll be hilarious.
Same bat time, same bat channel, baby.
And to be honest, if they are, I for sure want to talk to this person, you know? Yeah.
Coy, when you guys come out to visit, honestly, we need to have some experimentation with this. I would really like to be in the Walmart with you, and we can just kind of run a full spectrum experiment. You know, we can do 5 one way, 5 another way. I'm right this very second. I'm claiming 5 for you is going to be when someone strikes up a conversation, you just turn to them and you do that crazy wide eyes where you tip your head back. Yes. And you just don't say a word. Don't say a word. And you just wait to see how long it takes them to walk away.
Just nod. Just uh-huh. Yeah. Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, you know who would never do that to you, by the way? They'll always want to stop and talk no matter what.
Who?
It's Roy over at Sandy Am Powder Coating. Because he's just that nice. He's just that nice, you guys. And clearly he's a nice guy because he has chosen to sponsor this podcast for the summer. He's our summer-long podcast sponsor. I know it's December. Doesn't even feel like summer still. But since I'm in Florida, it's summer all the time, baby. So we're still calling him our summer-long sponsor. If you have a powder coating job that needs to be done, big, small, you need it done 8 weeks from now, you need it done tomorrow. You just need to go and talk to him. He always can get it done. What's the thing you like to say about him, Coy?
He's big enough to do your job. He's small enough to care about it and do it right.
And that's what Coy says about his dick. So, you know, if it works for Coy, then it works for Roy, and it's going to work for you. If you need any powder coating done, make sure you go and check them out. Facebook.com/SandyAm Powder Coating. The phone number for them is obviously in the link description, just like everything else that we're going to be talking about today on the show, baby. So let's, well, first of all, give me a little recap. How's the Mr. 2 doing?
Mr. Two's still in limbo. I haven't done anything. I have a new hub coming from California from a junkyard there. The closest hub, or not hub, I guess, knuckle, spindle, whatever you call it, is.
And Jake
But
Jaden, by
yeah,
the way, is in the comments. He just gave us a personal favorite. Oh, hey, how you been? Just kidding. I don't give a fuck. That is going to be the way you make sure you have no friends in the South.
that is awesome because I once got a job at this company that my brother worked at. And there was a guy there, old Daryl, old guy that worked there. And anytime someone new started, he would walk in, everybody would be sitting in the break room beforehand, and there'd be a new guy, and he'd be like, "Hey, my name's Daryl." And of course, they'd be like, "Oh, hey, my name is insert name here," you know? And he'd go, like, "I give a fuck," and walk away. Uh, everybody, everybody thought it was funny. That was like his thing. And my brother's like, "Hey, this is your first day. This is what he's going to do. Just want you to know." And so he rolled in and said that. And I just looked up and I was like, "Hey, my name's Daryl." I looked up and like, I give a fuck. And he was like, "What?" I turned it on him.
He's like, hey, that's my joke.
Yeah. He quickly figured out what had happened, but yeah, it was good.
Oh, that's super funny. Okay, sorry, I interrupted you. I apologize. So yeah, you still waiting on the knuckle?
I'm still waiting on the knuckle, but I'm hoping it shows up maybe tomorrow or something. The guy sent me the tracking number 2 days ago and said that it would be 1, maybe 2 days, super fast. And when I click on it, it's not even in the system yet. So we'll
Oh
see.
boy.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
fun.
yeah, that's super cool. So
Don't you love when that happens?
yeah, so waiting. But I mean, it's wintertime here and it's convertible. What am I gonna do? Uh and I actually need to order another. It's technically a power steering delete pulley that on there that's got some wobble to it, and I've been needing a new one. I've been kind of watching it because MR2 Spiders have electric power steering since the motor's in the back, and running power steering lines all the way to the front would be horrible and a pain. But that motor that's in the back, the 2ZZs, was really designed for a front wheel drive car that had power steering. So there's a factory power steering delete pulley, but just everybody calls it an idler. So I need a new one of those. I need to order it, but I can get it all put back together and running again without it, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, so I'm still waiting on a couple things, and man, I hope it all goes well this time. I'm really
Mhm.
not enjoying not winning. You know, it was just setback after setback, failure after failure, and I'm hoping I can get it all back together, and maybe my Fortunato suspension shows up, and I can throw that on and just back in the black. You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. People need to understand. Coy is used to just winning. That's his whole life. Like Coy seems like just he spun the wheel and he won the lottery. Everywhere, right? Even with your childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. I love not having TV and electricity. Uh, yeah. So so yeah, all I do is win mostly, like the song says, but I like to say mostly all I do is win because it's not all, it's like 74% win, you know?
Sure. Hey,
Yeah.
that's a real high hit rate, buddy. I'm sitting at like a 30% myself. So,
Yeah, in
although we
sports,
do
it's
have well, yeah, 30% if you're in sports, right? Not bad.
yeah, not bad at all.
We do have a couple of wins that are coming up for the show. So this weekend hasn't all been hammered out, but I should be able to go over to the Snowball Derby at the Five Flags Speedway here in Florida, and that's kind of a popular venue. I've told a few of my friends about it, and they had no idea what I was talking about. And then, of course, I told Roy over at St. Ann Powder Coating, and he was like, "Oh shit, dude, that's a big deal. A lot of really like big name drivers end up showing up to that." And so that was a cool little vindication. And then I haven't even told Coy about this. This is brand new to him as well. Next week, we are going to have a fella on the show. He's not doing the full show. We're just going to do a quick little interview with him. But he's the producer and the organizer for a bunch of massive monster car shows that are done here in the South. And that is going to be a fantastic conversation. It's Robert Parrish, and super cool guy. Met him when I was at the Emerald Coast Cruise In. There's something like 1,200 or 1,500 cars there. I mean, it's just massive event. Lives in Georgia, runs events all over the South, and it's going to be a really fascinating conversation with him. And so you guys are going to be able to listen to that next week. I'm very excited to have a little segment with him, and just good times rolling in, buddy. Good times rolling in. The sunshine's doing me good. I'm telling you.
Nice, man. Good poll.
Hmm. Yeah, it's been good here. It's been good. As a matter of fact, we've got an article coming up here a little bit later on in the show that's going to make most people hate their childhood even a little bit more. But we'll get into all that. Do you want to go ahead and jump into the news, Coy?
Yeah, I wanna touch on, Jaden's comment here.
What's this news I hear about? You guys are top 100 in Canada. Fuck yeah, baby. Yeah, we just charted in the top 100 for automotive podcasts in Canada. Now, granted, Canada only has like 4 automotive podcasts and we're 74th. So I'm starting to feel a little worse about it as the days go by. But
I think is it 74? I thought it was 96, but,
oh, maybe it's 96. I don't know.
uh,
We just barely cracked 100.
which yeah, I wanted to know more about that. I didn't even know we had listeners in Canada. Uh, so if you're if you're a Canadian listener, get on the Horsepower Hour Facebook page and
Mhm.
tell us you're the Canadian listener. I wanna know who our Canadian listener is, 'cause I'm assuming there's only one.
You know what? I will make a segment especially for you, Canadian listener. We're going to call it maple syrup and moose knuckles.
I'm okay. I'm good with that. Good with that.
You notice how Coy kind of had to skip a beat there?
Yeah. Took me a minute.
Eric Ewers is in the comments. Where's the off road podcast in that list? Still below the 4x4 podcast?
Oh, burn. Sadly, the 4x4 podcast was, like, started before, I guess not sadly, great for him, but, I mean, he was, like, good doing it before podcasts were podcasts. So he actually has pretty good
Hmm.
ratings, I've heard, and he does a great show.
Oh, I'm sure he does. The thing about podcasting, little insider baseball for you guys. Just about any podcast that was started more than like 11 years ago is doing pretty well because back then there were literally a dozen podcasts. When podcasts first became a thing, hell, some of the top podcasts out there, they were running on HTML. Like they were podcasts before Apple had such a thing as podcasts. They're called podcasts because they were downloaded almost exclusively onto iPods. That's
Yeah,
why called a podcast. So, yeah, if you've been doing the podcast for more than 24 episodes, which is where we're at, then usually you're in a little better position just because you've been around a little bit longer, right?
absolutely. I'm pretty stoked. I don't know. And the other thing is, like, I don't know how many there are. If there's 200,000 automotive podcasts, then I'm really happy about that. If there's 106, I'm not as happy. I mean, I'm still happy, but yeah, yeah. In the
Uh,
American market, what I think we're 174th. So yeah,
yeah.
I'm not upset about that for the automotive, realm. And when you consider there's so many shows that are super specific to a certain type of car, like with a Corvette podcast and the Camaro there's a lot of that stuff. So there's a lot of different automotive podcasts. I'm guessing in the thousands. So to be in the top 100 in Canada and under two or above 200, under 200, yeah, under 200 in the American market, I'm stoked, and
Hmm.
we only have our listeners to thank. That's not us.
Hmm.
That's you guys. So keep it up, guys. We appreciate it. Uh,
Sharing is
yeah.
caring. Like literally the only thing that keeps the wind in the sails of our little on-road pirate ship here is spreading the word. So we thank you for tuning in, and we do thank you in advance for telling a friend about the show. Eric Ewer says, "Didn't Al Gore invent podcasts?" That's what I heard, actually. Now that's an inconvenient truth, Coy.
Wow. Talk about a segue. You know
Deep
what else
pull,
is
right?
yeah. You know what else is a inconvenient truth, Andy?
What's that?
The new 2022 Toyota GR86, bro.
Buddy, so I have to admit, I have shit on this thing a little bit. You know that, right?
I I've been right there beside you, shitting on the other side of the thin linoleum stall door, shitting on this thing. It doesn't look good to me.
It's
It
ugly,
looks like
dude.
a Hyundai.
It does. It looks like a Hyundai Genesis, and there's nothing wrong with the Hyundai Genesis, but like it's just bland. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the GR86, and again, if you're on a live stream, you're seeing the photos right now. If you're not on a live stream, go ahead and click the link down below, and you'll be able to see the article we're talking about. I just don't. It's not exciting to look at. It's very pedestrian looking, in my opinion. Now that I'm seeing it, and I see the new Toyota Supra, there is some crossover styling between the GR86 and the Supra. But again, I mean, I'm not even the biggest fan of the way the new Supra looks, so it's kind of six of one, half a dozen the other for me.
Yeah, I do like the way the new Supra looks. This just extra bland, you know? It looks like it should have been a four-door, and then they at last moment decided to make it a two-door or something. Like, I'm just not stoked about it
Mm,
looks wise. Now, all that being said, the conclusion is it is definitely better than the old one. So
mhm.
there's an article from Motor Trend right now says it only takes a few minutes in this thing to see the obvious difference. It's better. Oh, show.
Well, and that's what I'm seeing. Some of the things that are better are both the performance and the handling. This thing has come pretty much. I think it's running like a 0.98 or 0.99 around the skid pad, and that's on stock tires. And do you remember the day, Coy, when doing a 1G lateral G around the skid pad was almost unheard of? Like you had to be on Hoosier slicks to do that. Do you remember those days?
I remember the first time, like that was like goals. Like the first time I've heard of like skid pads, and then it's like you start reading about skid pads, and then I think the first car I remember reading about was a rotary powered 510. It was like one of the cars in a sport compact shootout or something.
Yes.
And it was over 1G. And I was like, oh my God, it's possible. This is amazing. And that was like goals for me after that, even though I've literally never tried to measure, but I was always like, that's what I want, a car that can pull a G on the skip pad. Like that is awesome.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it seems so unattainable at the time. And now, I mean, you have again very pedestrian vehicles that are hitting that. This new car obviously has the larger 2.4 liter engine instead of the older 2 liter that came in the the 86 and the BRZ, 228 horsepower, Coy. So not bad. That's actually pretty decent coming out of this thing. The complaint always was these were super slow. I mean, barely would get into the 14s, and that was in the hands of a good driver. Most people would see like 14 or excuse me, 15 twos, 15 threes. This one is solidly coming in at 14.3 as tested by Motor Trend at 98 miles an hour. So I have to say, it looks like even though the body styles maybe gotten a little more bland for me, the performance has made a huge jump.
It really has, and these numbers, I'm gonna search it real quick. This is right at, S2000 numbers. Like, I know it's hard for a lot of us to believe, but Toyota's GR86 may have caught up to a car that was produced 22 years ago. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of shade thrown. Everybody loved the FRS and BRZ, but there was a lot of memes that went around, like the face you make when a 10, well, then it was, 10-year-old S2000 blows by you at the track, stuff like that. So this is right there. I think S2000's quarter mile numbers were like a 14.1. They never broke
Mhm.
into the 13s, and if it was, yeah, it might even been 14.5. I'm gonna check real quick, but yeah.
What did yours run? You had just a couple of mods on yours. The exhaust obviously was one of the big ones for you, but I remember you being pretty solidly planted into the 14s when you took your S2000 to the track, right?
Yeah, it's hard for I basically put it right at the, Honda advertised number, and at that point, I didn't have an exhaust or really any power mods. I just had better than stock tires,
Mhm.
and so I I remember it was, like, dead even with Honda's advertised number. It's like 14.5 or 14.1, something like that.
Mhm. Mhm. 5.8 seconds 0 to 60 in this. And I have to remind myself 5.8 seconds is actually not bad. It's still not, and here's the hard part for me. These numbers still are not really anywhere near the last generation of the V6 Camry, because the V6 Camry was running like um 13.8 or 13.7. I mean, trapping well over 100 miles an hour. And so it's strange to see this sports car that's running slower than that. However, I do have to admit, and it pains me to admit this, Coy. The new GR86 is brand new one. It's running nearly identical numbers to the Mazda MX-5, or Miata, as us older guys call it, Club Sport. And so it's really performance wise, it is looking like it's going to be solid competition for the MX-5.
Yeah, I mean, good, it should be. So I just Googled it. 0 to 60 on S2000s were 5.4. The quarter mile is rated at a 13.9.
Oh shit. So this is a little bit slower.
Well, I'm not it doesn't say what year here. That may be the 2.2 liter, so I'm guessing the 2 liter was probably a touch slower if I had to
Mm.
guess.
See, I thought the performance between the 2-liter and the 2.2 were closer because the 2.2 didn't rev quite as high. Am I
It
wrong?
it was 1,000 RPMs less of rev, I believe, but
Mhm.
there was little to no difference other than the just daily drivability of it was a little better on the 2.2s. I mean, it was the same motor, just stroke. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Was the
but, I mean, this is right there. I mean, it's just a touch different. This is yeah, it's really close. So, I'm not I'm not a huge BRZ, FRS, GR86 fan exactly, but I don't hate them at all. When I was looking, at the MR2, there were a lot of FRS and BRZs that were in that $10,000 price range, and I did consider them. It just didn't really speak to me like a lot of the other. I'm not a Subaru guy. Like I'm not a big flat four guy, so that was kind of my biggest turnoff to this was the
Mhm.
motor. Uh, they're not. I'm not saying they're bad or anything, but for me, like I don't want to. I don't want that flat four. I like those. I'm that still that Honda boy at heart. I need that smooth to the freaking moon rev, you know. And I don't want
Mhm.
that tractor sound. Like I want to feel like it's a sport bike motor in there, even if it's
Right.
slower. Like I'm fine with that. But
Because sometimes you need that visceral feel. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the reasons why Miatas and really all sports cars like that, Japanese sports cars, British sports cars, even going back to like the TR4s, there's something much more visceral about it. There's this intangible aspect that you do have to kind of address when you're talking about vehicles like this, because sometimes it's not all about the numbers. Sometimes it has to do with the way it makes you feel, right?
yeah, I mean it's 100% that really. I mean, that's the only reason Harley Davidson exists. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? They're an inferior motorcycle in every way, except for they make someone feel a certain way and they look
Sure.
a certain way. But performance wise, comfort wise, they're you can always find something better. Like a nice big gold wing style cruiser is way more comfortable to ride. And
Hmm.
performance wise, there's hardly a sport bike on the market that's not better. So it's, I mean, sorry, there's a bunch of like 600cc ones, but I mean, motor size for motor size,
Hmm.
every sport bike's better. So there's a lot of things that way that are literally just the way they make you feel. And that's a big part of it for me.
So I have the perfect analogy. It's like if you were with a girl, but every time you had sex, you were 3 pumps and done, like every single time. And it didn't matter, like you were using the numbing gels, you were, you were trying to get drunk, like you were taking Benadryls, try to, work yourself out. But just every single time, 3 pumps, boom, done. You don't even have a chance to enjoy yourself, right?
Ex- Exactly, I guess.
Sometimes it's not about the performance. Sometimes it's about the feel.
I I'm actually uncertain how this is an analogy in any way at this point, but I'm gonna yes and that. So
Okay.
yes, and yeah, it's exactly like that. Yes, and I'm gonna leave it
Sorry,
open end.
listen, we
Usually
do this
yes
show live,
and
you guys. I don't work this stuff up ahead of time.
I try to yes and, you know, but sometimes instead
Sometimes
of
I
me
just y
sometimes me saying yes and then adding to it, I do the open end. I go yes and then I let you finish with your point because I have no clue where you're
dig that hole deeper is what you're letting me do, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yes and. So
All right, so this is a terrible segue, but I do wanna move on to our next, news article. We have got the Chevy Silverado finally gets the lineup of its engines for 2022, and there's some interesting stuff going on here. Not the least of all is their 2.7 liter 4-cylinder engine. Now, Coy, when we first started talking about this, you were even like, "Oh shit, I didn't even know that they had, started using that already."
no,
I
I
want
was
to talk about
on
these numbers real quick. 2.7 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. Chevy is saying that this new one for 2022 is going to make 310 horsepower. Holy shit. And 420 pound-feet of torque. What the fuck?
that's crazy power numbers. Obviously, it's turbocharged, but you know, I've wondered for a while, like with Ford having the EcoBoost, they've been going nuts with their F-150 sales, whereas Chevy's, you know, mid-size sales have been not as well. And I've wondered if a
Right.
lot of it hasn't been to do with that. On the other hand, were they just biding their time for the technology to get a little better so they could just come out here and just slap it out on the table and say put a measuring tape on it? Like I that's pretty insane for a stock truck. 2.7 liter. I would honestly I'd like to see the horsepower graph on this. Like is this all at peak?
And that's the question. I was actually looking for a dyno graph of this motor, so I'm not 100% sure, but we have some amazing technologies now. The direct injection engines, those have really caught up. Variable vane transmission, or excuse me, variable vane turbochargers, lots of diesel applications, but at the same time, they definitely have some gasoline applications as well when you're trying to flatten out that torque curve. So this is wild speculation, but I have to assume that this four cylinders revving to like 5,800 RPMs, probably making max power and torque at 3,500, 4,000 RPM. That just seems logical to me. Don't you think?
To make over 100 foot-pounds of torque more in a small four-cylinder like that, yeah, this has to be kinda like a short stroke, just or long stroke. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm confused why it makes so much torque. That's pretty awesome, and that's 92 foot-pounds higher than it was last year. So,
Which is
is that
insane.
all is that all tuned? That just tuning change? Like, they're just like, "We need a bunch more torque?" Like, I wouldn't be s I mean, that's totally believable that it would just be a tuning change, but I don't know why they would've left that much on the table to begin with.
I don't I don't know. I don't know if I buy that it's a tuning change. I think more likely we're seeing a change in hardware. Maybe not necessarily the base engine, but it wouldn't surprise me if they swapped out the turbo for something different. I'm super curious what the turbo is on this. And I apologize, you guys. I know that we could prepare a little bit more for the show and I could tell you all the ins and outs, but we'll get to it eventually. I mean, this is brand new. There's not even a lot of specs out about the 6.2-liter V8 that is also an option in this truck. But the performance figures for the 6.2-liter V8 are not all that much more impressive. I mean, it makes 420 horsepower, which is great. That's fantastic. 460 foot-pounds of torque. And I mean, don't get me wrong, that's a lot, but at the same time, you look at it against this 2.7-liter four-cylinder, and you're thinking, well, why is 3 times the cubic size, or 2.5 times the cubic size, and 4 more cylinders, not making double the horsepower and triple the torque, right?
Well, I mean, forced induction versus not, obviously. Darwin asks, gas or diesel? So the
No, it's
2.7 liter
gas.
motor we're talking about is gas. They do have a newer, I shouldn't say new, they're putting it in the Silverado trim now, their little diesel. It is
Mhm.
a 3-liter Duramax inline six,
Yep.
and it's at like 277, 460 foot-pounds. So nothing to shake a stick at. That's pretty good too, but that's not as much more torque for diesel. Like, that's 40 more foot-pounds of torque and, about the same less in horsepower. So those numbers aren't as far apart as you would think they would be for
Mhm.
gas versus diesel. Basically the same liter, 2.7 versus 3-liter. Obviously the diesel is an inline six rather than four, but I don't know. That's a crazy motor. I'm really curious to hear and see more about that, and I want to see what kind of performance this gets once the aftermarket's into it. Give it 4 years on this motor. Like, I don't know how close they are to the bleeding edge of blowing this thing up, but
Mhm.
there's hardly a turbocharged factory engine that you can't easily put another 175 horsepower on totally
Mhm.
safe. So, I mean, if we could throw another 100 horsepower at this thing, that'd be in the 400s horsepower and 500s in the foot-pounds of torque department, which is
And
crazy.
a little insider trading for you, this motor is supposed to be going into the next, Canyon, Colorado, which, I mean, not that much smaller a truck than the Silverado, if we're being realistic, but it is smaller. And if they keep these same horsepower and torque figures, which obviously they can't, Coy, right? I mean, it has to come down for the smaller truck, yes.
Yeah, they're probably gonna take it down and put a, really weak transmission in it that can't handle any more power. If I had to just throw a guess out there, because that's weird how manufacturers do stuff like that, so that everybody would like to tune it to those high levels, but they actually have to buy the transmission out of a full size and shoehorn it into this. But it just bolts in, but then you have to get the ECU out of the full side, but the
Yeah.
wiring harness isn't even close to the same. So you gotta get this adapter and some soft, they always like to mix it up instead of. Remember back in, like, the 90s when cars were like Legos and you're just like, "Oh, no, I took the block off of this one. I took the head off of that one." Now here's the deal: you take the turbo off of this and the intake off of that, and you get the most power that way. And you're like, what years now? And they're like, oh, all wildly different years. I'm taking this out apart. These motors were built 10 years apart. You're like, they're not even close to the same. Like, yeah, it still works and it makes way more power. But nowadays we have to not do that so much.
One of my favorites of that was the intake manifold on the Ford Windstar minivan, 3.6 liter. I believe it was a 3.6 or a 3.7 liter V6 in the older SN95 Mustangs that had the V6. The Windstar, it's front wheel drive engine that was in the Windstar minivan, but you could take the intake manifold off of the Windstar engine and throw it on the Mustang V6 and instantly gain like 15 more horsepower, 10 more horsepower, something ridiculous like that. It was stupid. And I don't know why manufacturers do that. I'm sorry, but like, what kind of dog shit is that where, we've got it's literally the same engine. We're putting it in a different vehicle, but we got to detune it. And we got to put worse parts on it and all this other stuff. Like, wouldn't it just make more sense from a manufacturing standpoint to just take all of the same pieces and components? I've never understood the concept behind this is exactly the same running gear, except for we've made it shittier for this other vehicle. That has never made any sense to me. And it's like, look, I'm starting to think, Coy, oh my gosh, I just had a thought. Are you ready to hear this?
Epiphany time.
It's almost like these new, younger automotive engineers aren't actually into cars.
What? My thing here is when they're doing it this way, like I feel like it's not so much engineer, it has to be corporate, right? Saying, hey, it can't, because I feel like Chevy, learned a lesson back in the day with the Copo Camaro when they built it, and then corporate was like, hey boys, in engineering, you can't build a Camaro that's faster than a Corvette because that's our flagship car. And if you build a Camaro faster than it, how are we supposed to sell a Corvette?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of stuff about that back in the day. There's, if you get on the internet, you can read a bunch of stuff about it. But it was a thing that happened that they only could build so many of them and not so long because it was faster than the vet from the factory. It was a huge issue with corporate at Corvette or at Chevrolet. And I wonder if there's a touch of that going on. Like, we don't want you to be able to easily make this as good as this other one because this is what we've decided is flagship or better. You know what I mean?
I agree. When it comes to cars, I agree with that. When it comes to trucks, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, in my opinion, because then it comes down to the chassis. You're getting a Silverado because you need the larger chassis to be able to tow more weight, haul more weight. You're getting the Colorado or the Canyon because it's 6 inches shorter and 2 inches narrower, and you think that somehow that's going to help you navigate Portland's downtown roads or something. So for me, it seems like it's a moot point when it comes to the trucks. That's just my personal feeling. With the cars, I completely understand that. I mean, a lot of people said that's why the EcoBoost Mustang wasn't just the 3.5. They had to make the 2.3 and put it in the Mustang because if they had done the 3.5, people would have been bolt-ons and a tune away from 500 horsepower. And then why do we even have to worry about bothering with the Coyote motor? And now, granted, the Coyote motor, now that it's out and around and, people are realizing that the things that you can do to them, I think stock Coyote motor with just bolt-ons and a tune, one of the higher horsepower number ones right now is like 600. But still, you get my point. Like, that was kind of the concept behind not putting the EcoBoost V6 into the Mustang. And so I understand that logic. But when it comes to the truck, it just doesn't jive with me. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense,
Brunsted's throwing shade at me in the comments. I appreciate that, bro. Appreciate that a
Oh
lot.
yeah, Brunstad says man's voice is like a combination of Fergie and Jesus. That I don't honestly see how that's a bad thing, but uh wow, wow. Throwing you some shade, Jeepers Creepers. He's got to do Brunstad doesn't get to make fun of me. So he's you know what he's doing, Coy? He's throwing his anger that he has for me back onto you.
It could be. And you know what? I am ugly. But the people around me can get drunk and deal with it. But when they get drunk and have your personality, Brunstead, it makes them even angrier to be around you. So I just want you to think about that. Just want to leave you with that. All right.
Ouch. Ouch.
Oh, wait. You know I love you though.
Fuck you. I'm gonna punch you in the dick. You're such an asshole, but you know I love you, bro.
I like it when guys do that. They're like lighting you up, and then it's like, yeah, you know, you're the best, bro. But you know what? You're a total dick nard when you're around chicks, and then you did, and you're like, oh, okay, I got it. Yeah.
Well, we used to do that to our buddy Handsome Chris, where we were like, no offense, but I could fucking smash your teeth in right now, you asshole.
That was out of jealousy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
Speaking of people getting angry and having bad personalities, though, Stellantis being angry and having bad personalities. That's what I want to talk about.
Buddy. So throwing a hissy fit. I wish I had crying, like baby crying music pulled up. EV cost burden pushing automakers to their limit, says Stellantis's CEO Tavares. Wah, wah, boo-hoo.
Yeah, no, you actually said it all. I don't even know how much there is to talk about this. Obviously, everybody's pushing to get new EVs out. It's hard on all the manufacturers. Stellantis is crying about it like an MFer. Okay, like
They're saying that the external pressure on automakers is to quickly shift to electric vehicles, and it threatens jobs and vehicle quality. Okay, which I don't actually disagree. I think that there's a lot of truth in that. He goes on to say what has been decided is to impose on the automotive industry electrification that brings 50% additional costs against conventional vehicles. There's no way we can transfer 50% of additional costs to the final consumer because most parts of the middle class will not be able to pay, which obviously is where the EVs need to be aiming. I mean, EVs right now, EVs are starting to get a little bit more, um, normal, and we're seeing more of them. We can honestly thank Tesla quite a bit for that. And then the future of cheap EVs, we can, at this point, kind of thank Ford for because their new Maverick, is the cheapest hybrid available on the market, and it's a pickup truck. So there are some serious advantages there. But he is right in some ways. But I think also part of what's going on is that Dodge just has not been focused on EVs at all. They've been focused on, fuck yeah, bro, throw a Hellcat engine into it, which I appreciate. That's great. The problem is that they have dissolved all of that, and now they're trying to play catch up. Don't you think?
Well, they should have leaned into what they were doing at least to some extent, and then tried to work on some stuff in the background because of what Dodge has done. And I know that Stellantis, I keep saying Dodge, but I should be saying Stellantis. There's the Jeep EV that's coming out. It's not an EV, but it's a hybrid stuff. But I mean, when they say external pressure, I want to know how much they're talking about the government and how much they're talking about Tesla. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? So, Tesla has notoriously been able to sell their cars for what they sell them for because they don't really make money on their cars. They make money by selling carbon credits to other manufacturers
Right.
for millions of dollars, which is great. Everybody else bought them, and then they make more cars, and then they have more credits to sell to other people. But they're able to sell. Were and still are able to sell the Teslas for cheap enough that they can become mainstream. You know what I mean? They're not really so much in the middle class at this point, high middle class, upper middle class,
Mm-hmm.
but they just keep building better and better EVs. Then Stellantis has to buy credits to build a bunch of mediocre cars and a couple really awesome Hellcat powered stuff. But they
Mm-hmm.
haven't been working on their electric stuff. And now that they're kind of being forced to, they're crying. And it's like, look, thank you for the Hellcat stuff. you can either buy more credits and lean into it and make something that has a Hellcat motor that costs $35,000 brand new and sell it for cheap because you're able to manufacture it for cheap and then just buy more credits, or you have to stop making that stuff and start doing EV stuff.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
like, you got to play this weird game. So, I feel like Stellantis is just trying to get out of buying more carbon credits and into trying to, basically make their own carbon credits by buying EV, making EV stuff. And
I
they're crying about it. You should have started years ago, bro. I don't know what
Yeah.
to tell you. Like, that you're late to the game. Everybody makes more EVs than you, more or less.
Right, right. And I mean, look, I do think that there are some good points that are being made. The CEO also said over the next 5 years, we have to digest 10% productivity a year in an industry where normally you would see 2 to 3% productivity improvement every year. The future will tell us who is going to be able to digest this and who will fail you. Excuse me. The future will tell us who is going to be able to digest this and who will fail. We are putting the industry on the limits. But really, what he's doing is he's talking about them because he's just saying flat out over the next 5 years, Stellantis as a whole will need to uh, improve their production of EVs 10% per year for the next 5 years. Whereas every other manufacturer has already put a lot of R&D into this, and so they've found that flow. While it might not be a 2 or 3% productivity going to it, might have to be a 5%. And listen, don't get me wrong, we already know that the mandates for all manufacturers to be producing all EVs by 2035, like, I think it's all horseshit. But what we are seeing is a certain portion of the market saying, "Hey, I want an EV. I want an electric or a plug-in hybrid vehicle because it's trendy. It's what everybody has. Everybody wants a Tesla, right? Everybody wants a Rivian. Everybody wants what's that other company that just came out? Lucid. Is it Lucid? Anyways, it doesn't matter. The point is they're very trendy and Dodge just well, Stellantis as a whole has really just dropped the ball. They've completely dropped the ball, period. I'm trying to think about what EVs are available under their brand, and honestly, the only one I can come up with right now is the Fiat 500 EV.
Yeah, yeah, technically. There's a Jeep hybrid, so that's a thing. I don't It's not really EV, but it's leaning that way. And then, the obviously in the picture, the Jeep Magneto, there's that.
Mhm.
I believe
Well,
there's a
no, but
hybrid
hold on,
Cheer.
Coy. I'm talking about actual EVs that are being produced right now. So, I'm not super familiar with the Peugeot because obviously they're not in America. Fiat has some cars in America. I know that they have electrified certain portions of their vehicles, but of course, we don't get all of the Fiats that they get in Europe. And so, I'm now, am I wrong in thinking that this is an amalgamation of the corporation as a whole, or is it simply U.S. production that needs to start moving towards the EV every year?
It has to be the corporation as a whole, otherwise they would just pull technology from Peugeot and shove it at, Ram or whoever needs it in America. So,
Mm.
since it's Stellantis crying about it and not Jeep or Dodge or Ram, I'm guessing it's corporation as a whole.
I want to say you're right. The CEO of Stellantis, Tavares, says he has accelerated the electric vehicle development, committing 30 billion euros. What's a euro worth right now? Isn't it still like $2.35 is how
I'm
much it
pretty sure
costs to get a euro?
it's more than the American dollar. And that's good for you. I feel like with that kind of money, they could just buy someone else's tech though. Like,
Mhm.
I'm sure someone else would just let them use their technology that's a couple years old and just license it to them. Like, why not just do that if you're going to spend $30 billion?
Yeah, yeah,
Honestly,
30 billion dollars. I mean, we're talking new factories, new plants, new they're according to the CEO, this also includes things like building battery plants, perhaps designing their own battery. Tesla recently came out with new battery design. What is it? It's a 4160 or a 4280. It's a larger footprint lithium battery. And the thing that people need to understand about lithium batteries is right now most manufacturers are using the 18650 footprint lithium battery because that is there's no copyright on it. Anyone can produce those batteries. They're a little bit longer and wider than a double A, but they're certainly not a C cell sized battery. And so for the most part, I mean, it's the battery that you get for like a vape pen. That's an 18650. You slap one of those in, and that's the footprint that almost all of these vehicles are using in their battery packs. And Tesla has gone out on a limb, produced their own battery cell recently that they're going to start using in their own vehicles that allows them to not only charge faster, but also draw that energy out more quickly and produce less heat. And heat is obviously the killer of electronic components and batteries. And so there's a lot of good things, that come with them developing their own battery that's better all the way around than the small frame 18650 battery. So, I think that that's where some of the pressure is coming from on Stellantis as a whole, is if they just use that footprint that everybody else has been using for the last 7 years, that puts them 7 years behind the 8 ball. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, if I'm being totally honest, Andy, I hardly want to spend more time talking about this because I'm so disappointed with a lot of the decisions Stellantis has made and continues to make. And as Andy has famously and often said, Stellantis can suck my dick and balls.
Yeah.
So, you know what? You dropped the ball. Thanks for the Hellcat while it lasted before you tried ruining all the SRT stuff, the stuff I liked, the stuff you did mostly right, other than the weight issues. But beyond that, and now you're behind the game here and you're screwing around and you're dropping your other stuff. Like there's no reason you couldn't make Hellcat stuff while, putting money into EV.
Yep.
Sorry, the government's being so mean to you. Oh no, one of the big three thinks the government's being mean now. They've bailed you guys out countless times. Like the government's been blasting, literally finger blasting the middle class for years. So
Yeah.
enjoy what we've all grown accustomed to and suck it.
Coy, I just want to point out.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
do you remember? I mean, early on, this was last year's, but early on in the days of the Horsepower Hour, we were talking about, I believe it was the Hellcat Durango, and our stream got taken down from all platforms because Dodge gave us a copyright strike. Do you remember that?
It was the TRX truck.
Oh, it was
It
the
was
TRX.
the release video that was, 10 minutes long or whatever. We were playing snippets and they're like, yeah, copyright. And Andy just screamed, suck my dick and my balls.
I don't
Moving on.
know if you noticed
Sorry
or not.
for playing your advertisement to other people and commenting about how awesome it is. Excuse me for using that in a completely legal way.
Well, Coy, Coy, I don't know if you noticed or not, but that was the beginning of the end for Stellantis. Like they did that, and I was like, "Well, fuck those guys." And ever since that moment, it's sort of like Harambe getting killed, and that's what's led to everything happening in our political climate. If they roll the clock back and go, "Where did we go wrong as a company?" It's going to be that day that they gave us a copyright strike. They should not have messed with us. 98th best podcast in Canada. They shouldn't have messed with us.
So you, hex on you. You cursed them at that point.
Yes.
Shame.
All right, Coy, listen, I had a top 5, but the images aren't working, so I'm just going to blast right past it. We're going to get into our Olaf. You ready for that?
Let's hit the Tesla real quick. Since we just talked
Yeah.
about electric, somebody who's doing electric, right?
Yeah, that's
Tesla's,
our Olaf, isn't that?
Oh, you're right. I thought that was another. Yeah, let's Olaf that.
Overland is fucked! as if my childhood didn't suck enough, you're going to be able to get a Cyber Quad EV for your kids for a paltry. What is this, Coy?
$1,900.
Dude, I mean, part of my brain is like, holy fuck, that's a lot. The other part of my brain is like, well, just buying a quad in general is like $12,000.
Well, a kid's quad isn't, and there's a lot of like, you know, Taiwanese brand kid quads that you can get for $700 or something. But then there's a lot of like Yamaha and Honda ones that are significantly more.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this one's pretty awesome, dude. It looks like the one that they had at the Cybertruck unveiling, but baby
Mm-hmm.
sized. It has a configurable top speed of 10 miles an hour. And since this is electric, I'm betting there's like an iPhone app or something, and you can just get on there and dumb down the top speed, dumb down the acceleration, the actual all that, and spec
Mm-hmm.
this thing to what your kid's able to handle, and then bump it up as they're able to handle more.
So, Coy, check this out. It is a full steel frame. It's got a cushioned seat and adjustable suspension with a rear disc brake and LED light bars. Olaf, son, are you kidding me right now? Powered by a lithium ion battery, reaches speeds up to 10 miles an hour. I am amazed. I mean, personally, I am amazed. I'm honestly wondering if they're taking any profit off of this thing. And one more little tidbit for you guys. This shit's already sold out twice.
Yeah.
So this thing came available on Wednesday. It's sold out. It was restocked at some point on Thursday. We're recording this Thursday, so we're talking about today. And these motherfuckers sold out again. You still can't get one.
Absolutely. I'm wondering how many people just bought them to resell for $2,800. You know what I mean? Because they're going to be in short supply.
Oh,
This
yeah.
thing also,
It's like the PlayStation 5. You buy a
yeah,
PlayStation 5 when you find one because you can flip it for double.
and this thing has 15 miles of range, dude. That's nothing to shake a stick at. Like, that's a long time of riding around in your backyard. Like, less than an hour if you're doing full speed the entire time. But like, is your kid going to be just literally full on getting it for an hour straight, or are they just gonna be putting around a little bit? I mean, obviously, this your kid's not gonna take this to the dunes. You're not putting paddles on this thing, but
No,
it's a
but
legit
10 miles an
roller coaster.
hour. I mean, a Power Wheels, that's like 3.5, 4 miles an hour top speed. This thing does 10.
Yeah, that's a pretty good clip on a bike. Like, yeah, it moves along. I
So
want to
I'm
know
thinking,
here's
oh,
what I'm
sorry to
curious about.
interrupt. Well, hold on a second. I'm thinking back to the Tamiya buggy, that electric powered buggy. We reviewed it here, I don't know, 6 months ago. And do you remember how wildly uh underwhelming it was because it had a top speed of like 23 miles an hour and it had a max distance of like 26 miles on a charge? Do you remember that?
Yes, I was super stoked about it, and then I realized everything was in kilometers, and I was like, ugh.
Exactly. This thing, okay, it's only half of what that thing was. I understand that. But it's for fucking kids.
Yeah.
Imagine what they could do if they're making one of these for a full-sized adult.
Uh, Here's what I want to know about this one though, Andy. Pit bikes and like the little cafe bar stool shifter cart things, like all that kind of like pit row stuff has really popped. And those bar stool racers, those are at least $1,900. They're freaking expensive.
Yes.
Can you imagine being at the track and having one of these? I don't know how small it is, but can I get on this thing and cruise around at the track? Run up, check stuff out. Like, dude, this could be the ultimate pit bike. It's electric, so it's quiet.
Yep.
Like, you're not pissing everybody off in pit row. Mob around on this thing a little bit. That could be freaking sweet. Freaking
I don't
sweet, bro.
see
Straight up having a good time, bro.
so I don't see anything on here about like a weight limit. Um I'm just listen, I'm not a tiny dude. We all know that. So like I'm pretty sure if I jumped on this thing I would just instantly bottom out the suspension. But you still have to ask yourself, how fast is this going to go with me on it? 7 miles an hour? Okay, so it doesn't have the 15-mile range or 15. Sorry, what'd you say the range was on it?
15 miles.
Yeah, 15 miles. So maybe it only does 10 miles, 8 miles. Who knows? Maybe I start fucking overheating the motor because I'm just a fat chunk on this kid's bike. I don't know. But like still, if you're at a race event, are you really going to go more than 8 or 10 miles in one day?
I don't see how you would. I would doubt you'd be going more than a couple miles. And it's not like you couldn't plug it in throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, how fast do you need to be going to run down to the food carts and get cheesy fries and a elephant ear, and then come back and gorge yourself while you're cruising around on your electric quad? Your tiny
Darwin Bonk brings up a really good point. It doubles as a work light when you need to do work on the racetrack. Hmm.
Yes, thank you. And I bet this one doesn't, but I bet when they do the full size Cyber Quad, I bet it has an inverter and you can pull that thing up and plug shit into it.
Oh, I bet it does.
I
Eric
would be
Ewers
surprised
is
if it doesn't.
channeling Coy right now. He says, I'm immediately angry at this thing.
Well, I'm immediately angry at it because even though this wasn't a thing when I was a kid, I would have looked at that and just went, "Oh, well, I wonder what kind of, I guess Bill Gates' son will get one. That's cool." Uh, I'll never I wouldn't even assume that I would see this in real life. You know what I mean? I remember when I was a kid, the first time I saw $100 bill and I was like, "Holy crap. They make $100 bills? That's insane."
What would you even do with all that money?
Yeah, I was like, what can you buy at one time that costs $100? Like, like, how does this even work?
Yeah. I mean, hell, dude. I mean, neither of us. How old were you before you got a vehicle that was more than $1,900? I want to say that I've had. Uh, I mean, I hate to admit it, but I've probably had between 8 and 10 vehicles that did not cost me $1,900 when I first bought them. You know what I'm talking about?
The first vehicle that cost me more than $1,900 would have been my Civic, and I got that at, like, 18, 19 in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was 17 when I bought that. So, yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. But that being said, I paid $400 for my son's Power Wheels, and
Mm-hmm.
it is not near as cool as this. Now, it doesn't say if this thing's four-wheel drive or not. I have to assume it's not.
There's no way. There's no way. Because even at that price point, I would not expect it to be. Because I mean, shit, man, if it was 4-wheel drive, I'd be running out and buying one because at that price point, it would almost make sense. You know, it'd seem like a bargain. But it's a brand new, it's an EV. Like it can't be a bargain. It has to be a luxury. However, at $1,900, I don't know. I mean, is it really? I mean, if this was smoking dealer smoking a doob, would you really be able to call it a doob?
Dude, a new PlayStation goes for $900. Like,
Right.
would your would your kid rather have this or a PlayStation? The answer is obviously PlayStation because kids are lame these days. Uh, but dude, it's a sweet electric four-wheeler. And I bet this thing, even though it only has a top speed of 10 miles an hour, I bet it gets there pretty quick. And I bet if somebody was a software guy, they could make this thing go a lot faster than 10 miles an hour. You know what I'm
Somebody
saying?
figures out some code and goes,
Yeah.
interesting.
I can't wait for somebody to come out with a chip for this thing and an adult on this thing, standing on the brakes and just doing a fat burnout, popping tires on it, like, yeah, it'll only go for 12 and a half minutes at this rate of power consumption, but check this out, just turn it into a wheelie monster.
Dude, whistling diesel, get on that. I know you're 6'2", but you only weigh 150 pounds.
Do it. Do it.
How much did you pay for that Scion TC that you bought from a coworker?
$900.
So literally, you could have bought 2 of those and had enough money left over for some real nice lunches down at the taco truck. So that's what I'm talking about. There's this weird thing that happens in my brain where I'm like, oh fuck, $1,900. Like I get my next project car for $1,900. Of course, my brain is leaving out the fact that I'm putting another 10,000 into it to make it fast. But that's the weird position that guys like you and I are in, where we look at stuff like this and technology's been advancing so quickly. I mean, I used to think that about my grandparents. I was like, holy shit, they're like when my grandmother was born, cars were hardly even a thing, you know. I mean, they were. That was like by the 20s. So I mean, cars. You obviously saw cars everywhere, but I don't think her family had a car until they had been in the United States for, I don't know, 3, 5 years. Wasn't until the dairy was up and running. Um, and now, like, and just thinking back to everything that my grandparents saw, you know, man landing on the moon, and before they died, they saw like the iPhone and iPods and all that stuff. So that's a huge jump in technology. But it's
Right.
weird to kind of stop and think about
Parents haven't died yet, Andy.
what's that.
Is it technically your parents haven't died yet?
No, I'm saying grandparents, not my
Oh,
parents.
okay, sorry. I thought you said parents. I was like, easy. Don't don't close the chapter yet, bro. Like, Jesus.
Well, I mean, my parents have lived long enough. They were young when man landed on the moon, and now they're old when I hate them for a whole new reason because I never got an EV quad when I was a kid.
And it sounds like we're going back to the moon. So if they can make it till then, twice, man went to the moon once. They were young. Man went to the moon old, and their kids hated them. Done.
That's
Well, circle of life.
That's what we like to do here on the show, right? Overland is fuck. All right, that is our laugh, buddy. Let's go ahead and just move right into our smoking a doob. Coy's got a heart out that's coming up fast, so I want to just go ahead and move into this. You good with that, Coy?
Let's do it. Speaking of circle of life, man.
Smoking deal or smoking a doobie. Smoking deal or smoking a doobie. All right, this week's smoking deal or smoking a doobie is something that I came across, and I'll be honest with you, I'm really just looking at this because I have an extreme love of these vehicles. This is a 2000 Subaru Impreza 2.5 RS. This is the GC6 body style, which in my opinion is the best Subaru body style. I can't really say that it's any lighter than the WRX or the STI that came after it, or even the one after that. These were not known as being like super lightweight vehicles, but what a fantastic look on these. I just love the way these look. Now, this one is available in Jacksonville, Florida, so it's not too far from me. There's some caveats here. So I just want to go through this real quick, Coy. It says that the shell has 88,000 miles on it, which is low. It is a roller. It says right in the seller's description, please read or I will ignore. Vehicle is a roller. STI ready drop-in roller. 2000 Subaru Impreza RS Coupe, for sale or trade. Car comes with extras. Currently wired for a 2005 USDM STI motor and transmission. It's got the 2005 STI dash. It's got bride seats, Brembos, axles, drive shaft. It does not have a transmission or a rear differential. So if someone is looking at this vehicle, they will need to understand that we're talking about a full STI swap. Like it's not just the motor. You need to have the motor, the transmission, the rear end, which in some ways kind of makes sense because those are all matched up, right? You have the controller for the
Well,
center differential.
still has the motor with the car though, just no transmission.
Well, the motor's locked up.
Or it says that the motor's locked up in here.
So what it says is car is wired for a 2005 USDM STI, has harness and motor with accessories. Motor ran dry.
Oh, I assumed that he fired that up without the transmission in, and that's what he was trying to say there. That he fired it up without the oil in it, is what you're thinking?
I'm thinking so. It says motor ran dry, so I have to assume that motor is toast. I mean, listen, Subarus aren't the strongest engines in the world anyways. So I have a feeling the motor is donezo.
Yeah, that makes more sense with the price. Now, I
Yes.
have to say though, aesthetically, I love this car. It's fat flared, big tired, white.
And I'm
Uh,
sorry, Coy, let me go ahead and finish. All white line suspension, 17 by 10 JNC wheels, Fortune Auto coilovers. They're brand new. It's gutted. Trunk was cut for a fuel cell, but it has been sitting for a while. Okay. Now, please go ahead. Give me your thoughts.
a- Aesthetically, loving this car. We go back to like you're saying, this car was not really considered a fast car in America because they had a non-turbo 2.5 liter. But I know earlier I said I wasn't a Subaru guy. If there's 3 Subarus that I would own, these 2.5 RSs, love them. They're fast. They take STI swaps. Not a fan of flat fours. Love this car. Just great looking car. I also other Subaru I'd own, SVX. No idea
Mhm.
why. They're trash. They're weird and I kind of like them. And I would own a BRZ under the right conditions. So basically, I would own almost any of the 2 doors that Subaru made in the last 30 years.
Mhm.
And I just thought of this after the 2.5 RS, the next 2-door Subaru made would have been the BRZ, right?
Yeah, when you're talking two-door Subarus, it's gonna have to be
Yeah.
the 2.5 RS Coupe, it's have to be the SVX, and it's gonna have to be the, BRZ, yeah.
I think there's a couple really old ones like the Justy and stuff in there, but yeah, they went a long time without making a 2-door. I like this car, Andy. I like it a lot. Now, obviously, it needs work. It's a rolling shell, but
Mhm.
it comes with all the suspension. So he doesn't say which Fortune Auto coilovers. That's anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000, depending on which ones he has. White line, I'm assuming that's just sway bars. Could be a
It's
few other
probably
things.
Yeah, it's probably bushings and stuff like that, right? Jim Clack just jumped into the comments and says, "Man, that Subi looks hot." And I think he's right. It's got the fender flares. It's got the fender over tires. I don't know what's going on with the front quarter panels, Coy, but they look pretty dope. It's got like a venting in the front quarter panel. The hood's vented. It's got the bigger STI wing in the back.
Yeah, he's got the front fenders cut behind the wheel. Think like Spoon S2000 fenders or some Civics fenders, aftermarket ones made that way. I can't tell. It looks like he didn't just cut those. It's not a raw edge, so I don't know if that's an aftermarket front fender or if there's some kind of insert piece, or maybe he's good at metal work and did it. But the paint in all these pictures, the paint looks good as well.
Mhm.
I mean, this car just looks great. Nope. Okay, I'm looking at a close up. That looks like that behind the fender was cut, but it's part of the over fender and it looks
Mhm.
finished and good.
One of the things that did bump me about this is one of the photos is actually a Google Maps Street View photo. I have no idea why you would include that in the photos. Makes 0 sense to me. This is the kind of shit where when I see this, it makes me assume that this person just simply does not wanna sell the car, but, they might be young and they might be frustrated and they're selling it, out of a need, but they're being angsty about it?
So what let's break it down. He's asking, and I think we haven't said price. He's asking $6,000 for this car, right?
Mhm.
So that's a chunk of change. But I mean, what is the minimum you could get a 2.5 RS with 200,000 miles on it? Maybe it still runs, but we all know you can't really go racing with that kind of mileage. The motor may run while you get it. If you're trying to do anything with it, you're going to blow that motor in short order and be in this exact situation anyway. So, high mileage 2.5 RS, what could we get that for? Just bone stock.
I've seen them for 4,000, 5,000. I mean, they're kind of becoming a collector's item at this point, especially the two doors.
So, you're not that far off a high mileage one. He's done suspension, it's looking good. I wish there were some more interior shots. He has bride seats in it. That much I can see. It kinda
I,
looks gutted inside.
it is. It's gutted. He says in the description that it's gutted. It's race car status.
So that shouldn't play into my price at all, but if it still had a headliner and some stuff in it, like it looks like it has all the dash, so that's good. Like I need to know is the defrost still going to work on this? I need to kind of know what the extent of the gutting is, because if I get this, obviously it's going to be something I race, but I would still like to be able to drive it to the autocross event or drive it to a track day. I don't want it to be a trailer only situation.
Mhm.
So when cars get trailer only, I do feel like that's a little bit of a price drop for me, versus something that is actually streetable. So, Andy, when you consider like bride seats, and I mean, they might not be real bride seats, but bride seats, suspension, the body
Mhm.
work, with the over flares, wheels and tires being fatties like that, it appears he's already clearanced everything. The bumper has the quick remove, attachment stuff. And
Mhm.
honestly, the paint being in as good a condition as it is, got the I don't know if those are the Japanese headlights, but they're the,
They are.
dark side markers. Yeah, I'm pretty sure those are
Yeah.
the JDM spec headlights.
It's so coy, if I may, the headlights, the taillights. I don't know much about Subarus, but I can tell you that the headlights, the taillights, the rear bumper, the front bumper, and the hood are all GC8 STI shit that we didn't get in the United States. So those are all import pieces.
And the tires look to be in good condition, which I
Mhm.
know and I know you can't get your money out. What are those Toyo Proxies, I think, looking at the tread pattern?
Yeah, looks like
Uh,
it.
you know, big fatties like this aren't cheap. There's $1,000 worth of tires right there. There's at least $1,000 worth of newer suspension. I don't see this being a bad deal. Like, honestly, if I was in the market to spend money on a car, like, honestly, if I just didn't have the MR2 and this had popped up, I think I would have went and looked.
Yeah.
Like, I like this a lot. These can be crazy fast. Yeah, it needs an STI motor. He's already got it wired for an STI motor, so that's kind of a huge deal for me because I'm not a wiring guy. I don't know what a STI motor runs these days since I haven't looked into doing an STI swap, but I don't think they're terribly expensive.
I wouldn't think so either. Let me do a quick search here, but I mean, can we just assume like 30, $500 if you want the engine and transmission?
Possibly, and since it does have a motor that's in it that was blown, it ran dry, so I'm assuming this is still pretty easily rebuildable. STI motors stock aren't the most reliable, so that's a pretty good opportunity to go ahead and just rebuild this one how you'd like and
That's
pick up a
if it's not
transmission
totally
rear end.
trashed. I mean, he does say that it was ran dry, so we have to maybe I'm taking the side of the motor's totally trashed and you just have to get a new one. But if that's not the case, oh, ooh, okay, all right, all right. Just looked this up, Coy. This is just one website. I have not looked anywhere else. 2004 and 5, STI version 8 engine and 6-speed manual transmission, $6,400.
That's crazy price to me, but the way guys blow up Subarus, I'm assuming that they do bring a little bit more money, but
And you know what? That's a Japanese spec one too. If you get an American one, it could be totally different.
still, I mean, this car's done except for a motor, so 6 grand. It's already wired, so there's gonna be some consumables. You're gonna have to find a rear diff. For 13 grand, you could be into this amazing looking car with an STI swap, and man, that's not a bad price. I
Yeah,
mean, that's a
ready to
lot of
fucking
car.
rip.
That is a lot of car for 13 grand. That is hard to beat for 13 grand in STI swapped.
Yeah, because you're gonna
People
take this
love
as a
around.
track and instantly start mopping up. I mean, this is gonna be it's gonna be a barnstormer, even if it's at stock or horsepower levels. Let's say you're just doing 300 horse, 300 foot-pounds of torque with as wide as it is, and with all the meat underneath of it. I would have to think that this would probably be a pretty quick car, even with just stock STI shit in it. Um, yeah, so I'm doing some quick searches here. All I'm finding is JDM takeouts, but there is I don't know. I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I am kind of feeling like if you got to take out from an American version, it has to be cheaper, right?
It would have to be, and honestly, if he ran this dry on oil, uh, unless somebody put a brick on the pedal, this motor should be salvageable.
Hmm.
Yeah, you're gonna have to buy rods and pistons. You're gonna have to get machine work done. Guys do it all the time. And for 6 grand, I think I could pick up a transmission and a diff and then build this motor. I'm gonna kind of price this assuming I can reuse this motor, even though I'm not that put off. If I have to put 6 grand to get a stock motor in there, I'm still not unhappy as long as it's a good, solid running motor. But if I can go ahead and do a little work to this and I pick up a STI transmission and rear diff for I surely 2,500 bucks, and then I
Hmm.
got that leaves me with 4 grand to build this motor. I want to be able to do a little something. You know what I mean? And this
It
car
kind
is
of.
going to be a straight. If this motor's rebuildable and you figure you're going to put another 7 grand into it, this thing's going to be a straight fucking monster. Like, I mean, monstrous
Oh yeah, because there's
for
no reason
2.5.
if
Yeah.
yeah, if you're rebuilding the engine that was in it and it is an STI motor, since you're rebuilding it, you can just rebuild it right. You can make a reliable 500 horsepower because you're, fixing all of the problems that the STI engines had from the factory. Ring gaps, I'm looking at you. But you can fix all of those problems and have a pretty reliable 500 horsepower engine. And 500 horse in one of these things, holy shit, that would absolutely mop up. I do just want to do a quick little the Coyism where we break down what exactly would it cost you to replicate this thing. So you already said there's probably $1,000 worth of tires there, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I generally don't count tires because that's kind of a consumable, but he's
Sure.
already got why I'm kind of counting that is because he's already got over fenders and wheels and tires and the fitment's there. It looks right. It's not stanced, but I mean, he's done the fitment work. He's figured out his offsets for that. Those flares ain't going to be cheap. That front flare is a complete unit that goes, and you got to cut that front fender. I have no idea what that costs. If those are less than $700 for that flare set, I'd be surprised.
Well, and I'm not super into importing body pieces either, but I'm just gonna let's give 2 grand in the build for the front and rear bumpers, the fender flares, the hood, the Japanese spec like headlights and shit. Like I'm saying, I'm not none of that really matters to me, but let's just go ahead and throw 2 grand on there. So let's call the wheels and tires 1,000, all the JDM shit and the over fenders, that's probably another 2,000. 1,500 for the Fortune Auto coilovers. We'll assume they're the worst ones. I'm gonna call all the white line shit $1,000. I am giving him a little bit here, but he talks about having chassis bracing. He talks about having bushings, maybe the sway bars and stuff. So let's give him 1 grand for all that shit. If it truly is all white line shit, that could easily be 2,000, but we're taking some liberties here. What am I at? About $5,000, right?
Yeah. And now we still don't have a chassis, you know what I
We still
mean?
don't have a chassis.
So I gotta call this a deal. Like, and all this, it looks good, which plays
Mhm,
into it, not monetarily, but I've seen these where the numbers kind of add up, but the paint is shit. Like, and it just
mhm.
you're like, man, that's everything's there, but it kind of looks like trash. Like it's got a dent in that rear quarter. It could be taken care of. It's not a big one. Like, do we put a band-aid sticker on it? Like it looks good. Everything kind of matches up. I don't know if this is a 10-foot paint job where the pictures look good because he just rattle canned this and wet sanded it, but I'm
Mhm,
assuming this is just a factory white job, but I don't know
mhm.
for sure. So we're taking a lot of liberties here, guys. And this is the first time I've said something like this is a good deal, I think, honestly. But I gotta say this is a deal. I gotta deal it. It's not the most amazing deal, but it is for sure not a bad deal. Maybe not smoking deal, but it's a good deal. I think it's a good deal.
Yeah.
And this is what he's asking. This is our best offer. There's probably no reason you can't walk away with this for 5.
You could be right. You could be right. And now is the opportunity, by the way. We've got some folks watching live. If you have thoughts about this vehicle, as a matter of fact, if you don't have any thoughts about this vehicle, I want you to throw into the comments, is it a deal? Is it a doob? Of course, we do have to do our kind of final assessment here of what we think it's going to sell for, and then what our buy it now price, we cannot live without it price is. So if you're watching along live, go ahead and throw that in the comment, because I really do want to see what you guys think about this car. Coy, should I just go ahead and start off?
Yeah, you go first.
So I think this is a deal. I'm not even going to call it a soft deal. I think it falls squarely in the deal range, because someone that has a Subaru that they like, piled up, got rear-ended. I mean, whatever. I know that's kind of an odd thing to have happen, but I have known people who have had that happen. Like, I actually went to college with a guy that had Legacy, and he had a JDM STI motor in it, and rolled the Legacy over because he was trying to street race somebody, but I don't know, he was high or drunk or some shit like that. He was just being stupid, rolled the car over. The motor was fine, but he needed a new shell. So this would be perfect for him, because he's already got a motor, transmission, rear end, like all of the JDM STI shit. He already has it. And so I feel like this would be kind of perfect for someone. Again, going back to, let's say somebody had an STI that they wrecked or rolled over, but the motor is still good, the driveline's still good, but the body is just totally trash. Again, rolled over, rear-ended, whatever you want to call it. This would be perfect for someone to just buy it and swap all of their shit over into it, and they would have, again, I think, a really, really good deal. I don't know if I'd call it a smoking deal, but I think it'd be a really good deal. I think in the right situation, someone that's trying to build one of these, I don't even know if I'm gonna say he'll walk away with 5. I honestly think he might get the full 6. There's gonna be a little bit of leeway there, it depends on what extra parts he has, stuff like that. But if he's got some extra goodies he can throw in, it would not surprise me if he ended up getting right on the nose 6K for this, just being totally honest. Now, me personally, if this was at my neighbor's house and I saw it and I was just like, holy shit, I have to have that. I I'm actually going to go a little bit higher than I normally do on this stuff, because I have such a love of this body style Subaru. Like, I would jump all over this thing if it was, you know what, Coy? 3,500. I know that's high for me when it comes to these dealer dubs, but if this was sitting in my neighbor's yard and he said, I need 3,500 bucks, I'll throw in all my extra goodies. It's got that blown up motor in it. That would be hard for me to walk away from at 3,500, because I do have such a love for these cars.
I know you're I'm not trying to one up you here, but as someone who in the last year spent 8 grand on a project car that ran, but I recently did buy a race car, or I'm making a race car, I guess I should say. Uh, if I was still had that budget and this came up local to me at 6 grand, man, he's everybody's gonna offer you less, and he did say or best offer. So it depends on how firm he is. But if he's like he only wants to take 800's his lowest, it's gonna sell. Like
Yeah.
it's 6 grand. I think it would still sell, but since he says OBO, I don't think anybody's gonna walk in and give him full asking price. They're gonna barter. Now, the other thing I want to put into play here, I'm looking at this through my Northwestern eyes, and Subarus sell for more in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know what the like middle America, Subarus run cheaper there. Like I have heard of guys going even brand new going to Utah and stuff and buying Subarus and driving them back to just because they'll get it for $1,500, $2,000 less. And it's like, yeah, flight there's $100 to Salt Lake, and boom, I'm headed back. So it's a weekend thing. I'm honestly not sure what this is a Florida car. Looks like Florida plates,
Yeah,
right?
it's a Florida car. Yep.
How close is this car to you, just out of curiosity?
About 3 hours.
Man, if you have any reason to go to that area, I would be tempted to look. I love this.
Okay, so hold on a second. Hold on. We're mixing this up a little bit. So what I'm hearing is, at his price, you think he's pretty much going to get 6,000, 5,800, like no problem.
Yeah. No
Okay.
problem. I think this is a deal. I'm not gonna throw smoking on it, but it's right there. And if it had honestly, if he had a half cage in this, I would just scream smoking deal. Like I'd be like, Andy, go buy it now. Uh,
Yeah.
and honestly, if my neighbor had this for sale, dude, I got to go higher than you.
Really?
And I'm doing this considering I do love these, but I wanted an MR2 specifically. But if my neighbor had this for sale as it sits and it was just there looking good like this, honestly, if it was a dollar under 5 grand a year ago before I
Mhm.
bought my MR2, I'd have to buy it. Obviously,
Mm.
since I have an MR2 now, my price is probably closer to yours. I'm gonna say a dollar under 4. But honestly, if I was still looking for a quick car, if it was a dollar under 5 grand, I'd buy it straight up. Like,
Really?
I mean, we've taken some liberties and stuff, kind of just picking what condition it's in and everything. If that
Mm.
paint isn't factory paint, that's gonna obviously drop my price a lot. But dude, I think this is a good deal. It's getting me tingling in all the right spots.
You're feeling the fizz, huh?
I'm feeling this. This car looks good. I love 2.5s with fat flares on them. That they look good. Wide bodied, they look really good.
Yeah.
Uh, Back in the day, there were some time attack cars that looked similar to this, but with more aero that I really liked. I can't remember whose it was right now. I don't remember the livery. Might have been Cobb's. I can't remember. But there's been some crazy fast 2.5 RSs built, and this one's going that direction real well.
All right. So I have to ask you now, if instead of just, like fender flares, or excuse me, just over fenders that basically cover the tires, if instead of that it had box flares like a la the Subaru 22B, what would you be thinking?
But like legit, not just not plastic colored, like
No.
actually, done.
Yes, like think box flares, but they looked factory.
That does it for me too, dude. Like I love flares. I love wide body. Anything that's got da ass, I'm
Hmm.
into. So that changes nothing for me. And depending on how they looked, it could make it better for me. Like I
Well,
like
that's
this style of flare, but
yeah, that's
I
what
don't
I'm talking about.
well. So
If it had like an SFI rated cage and box flares on it, would you be flying out here to get this thing or what?
well, it wouldn't be a deal by the time I got this back to my house is the problem. So
Good point. Good point.
uh because I would have to trailer this thing across the country, and only God knows what that cost me to drive there with a trailer and back. So, again, considering I'm taking a week and a half off work, uh, this thing would end up costing me 13, 14 grand just to get to by the
Get it
time it was
home.
at my house with no motor in it. It's like I could have bought a used STI. Uh, I love this, man.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. I'm putting deal on this. I think Koi is too. If you guys have any feelings otherwise, if you think we're right on, if you think we're crazy, let us know in the comments. We always do want to hear that. But that is our smoking a dupe for the week.
Smoking deal or smoking a doobie.
And actually, we've already got some comments coming in. Jake Jaden says 3K because I have a Subaru and I know it's a headache and stuff, and it's big money to make strong internal engine. It's got a point there. Jim Clack says deal, just not one I would want to grab. But your deal breakdown looks pretty accurate. So I feel these guys, I get what they're
You
saying.
missed one more comment there.
Oh, what did I miss?
Brunstad says, "I'm smoking a doobie." As
Oh,
we speak. So, nice, bro. Enjoy that. I'm
crossfade.
I'm a little jealous. He earlier said he came from back from the bar and now he's smoking a doobie. Dude, it's Thursday night. Jeez. Let's let's hang. I mean,
He's
I don't think I can hang with that, but I'd like to be a part of it. Like, jeez.
he's a college student. It's fine. Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, listen, when I ran across that this week, I just thought, wow, that seems like a pretty pretty decent deal, and it's been up too. So this has been posted for 10 weeks. It honestly
That's
wouldn't surprise me if it's already been sold and he just hasn't removed it yet. But you know,
honest,
I
Andy. Honestly, you know what I think's going on? Unless, like I said, Subarus run cheaper in Florida. I don't know. Uh, but I know that does happen. I think this guy is angry at it and put it up for sale. He's either not even replying to people on ads, or he's like makes it so wildly inconvenient for them. Like he's not even showing it. Like this guy doesn't really want to sell it. His wife told him he needs to sell it, and he's like, it's on Craigslist. Like, man, it's on Facebook. Yeah. Like it doesn't really feel like he wants to sell this car, kind of the way it's written out to me. He has
yeah.
it there, but I think he's keeping the car. I really do.
So at the very bottom of the listing, it does say, and this is verbatim, price listed is after 5,000 messages and hundreds of offers. If you don't like the price, keep moving. So I think you're right, Coy. I think he's trying to just do everything he can to hang on to it.
Yeah. Well, if you're into Jacksonville anytime in the next couple weeks is still up, you should just swing by and look at it. Just for me, because I'm curious. Like this car's hitting all my nostalgia buttons. This is definitely one of my crap can heroes that in my imaginary Jay Leno collection of
Yeah.
crappy JDM cars, I would have one that looked near identical to this. I would even prefer it to be white. Love it.
You're seeing Kaiichi Tsuchiya driving this thing down the Toge, huh?
This is a best motoring video car for me. Like I'm like, yep,
Yeah.
this is clicking all the right buttons for me. I'm loving it.
Brunstad says, past my finals, I'm killing it and I'm vibing. So you know what? Good for him. I have to give him a quick shout out because he needed to write a paper on the female menstruation cycle. He's going to college in Eugene, so it kind of makes sense that he would have to do that. But listen, if he passed that class, son, C's get degrees. That's all I'm saying, right?
I know Brinstad, and he is the uh how do you say it? The abrasive army vet that you would think he is, and the fact that he's passing college classes in Eugene on stuff like that says a lot about his fortitude, mentality, and just willingness to hold back everything inside to pass a class. I'm actually proud of him just hearing that. That's
I
amazing.
am too. I am too. Congratulations, Brunstad. And hey, congratulations, by the way, to our summer-long sponsor, San Am Powder Coating. You want to talk about somebody that gets it done right every single time. Roy has opinions on things, but you know what he does? He keeps it to himself so that he can get you the absolute best product he possibly can every single time. If you have anything that needs powder coated, there is nowhere else to go. Forget about all those people. Listen, I'm not an organ anymore, Coy, so I can say this. Organ powder coating, blech, patooey. All those big Portland guys, the dudes that do production, fuck them. Don't even bother going to those guys. You need to be driving down to the little teeny tiny town of Scio and getting your shit powder coated right and getting it done in the time frame you need it to get done at San Am Powder Coating. They're the only place that is going to treat you right and get it done right in the time frame that you need it done. Again, Facebook.com/San Am Powder Coating is where you can find them. Phone numbers in the description below this podcast. Whether or not you're watching on live, listen to the podcast, you can just go right down into the description, find all their info down there. Speaking of, while you're out there giving them a like on their Facebook page, come and check us out. Facebook.com/The Horsepower Hour, the group. Facebook.com/groups/The Horsepower Hour. It's where you can join all of the like-minded automotive people, get part of the conversation. We have amazing stuff that gets posted over there. I mean, Coy's posting shit all the time. We got other podcasters. We have automotive podcasters that are coming and posting in the group. We have race car drivers that are coming and posting in the group. I mean, this is just, it's a community. It's a tight knit. Okay, you know what it is, Coy? It's a small community of really knowledgeable car people, car people that are in the automotive industry, in the racing industry. They're enthusiasts, they're professionals. And if you are not part of the group over on Facebook, then you are seriously missing out. Again, that is groups/the horsepower hour at the horsepower hour on Facebook and Instagram. If you want to come and see what we have going on Instagram, not a whole lot right now. I got to be honest with you. I've been slacking on the Instagram because we've been in the middle of the move. We're still living in our RV, as you can see in the background if you're watching on live. But we have some really cool stuff coming up. Again, we are going to some race events. We've been going to some car events. Next week, we're going to have an exclusive interview, once again, with Robert Riggs Parrish, who operates a lot of these huge car events. He just got finished with the Emerald Coast Cruise-In, Coy. Did I happen to mention more than 1,500 cars showed up to that event? Did I mention that already?
I think you mentioned something about that. Yeah.
Dude, it is crazy. The kind of stuff that this guy is organizing is amazing. And I cannot wait to have a conversation with him. We're going to talk about all of his loves of cars, how he got started doing the events, and what it takes really to put on an event of that size. I mean, I know a lot of people that are really proud of like car clubs that they put together and they have 12 cars that show up. This dude's got quadruple digits, Coy. 1,500, more than 1,500 cars showing up at his one little event. It is shocking to me. I can't even imagine what it takes to put something like that together. And we're going to hear all about it next week. I'm very excited to be able to talk to him. Coy, what do you got going on? How can people reach out to you?
You can reach out to me on the Facebook page. Shoot us a message. If you want to get to me, go ahead and just say, hey, this message for Coy. I think you're a flaming douche. And I'll get on there and be like, you're a little bit right, but here's some reasons why I'm not. And then I'm going to stalk your profile and try and come up with some reasons why you're a douche. And if you're not, then I'll just be like, wow, well played, sir. So there's that.
Coy's not bitter. Coy's not bitter. He just, he plays the long game.
I've been called bald and ugly twice today from podcasting stuff. So, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not angry. This meat suit that I was born into that you guys are making fun of. Appreciate it. It's all good.
There's a reason why we call him the tripod, folks. Hey, listen, I want to thank all of you out there for tuning in. I want to thank you for telling a friend. It is the only thing that keeps this podcast afloat, and we do appreciate that so much. Listen, you guys, Coy and I, we're doing this. Basically, I'm doing it from the road, and Coy's doing it from his studio. It's not going to be too much longer before I'm in my new house and I got the studio set up. We're covering both coasts, east and west. You do not want to miss the amazing coverage that we're going to be putting out over the next year. Please do stick around, and please do, once again, share out the podcast. Let everybody know what's going on. If you feel like leaving us a review on Facebook, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Google Play, we do appreciate that all the time. So thank you so much for doing that. And for Coyson Masterson, Junior Senior Esquire, Duke of Earl Grey, this is Andy. We will see you next time.